Well, alright, so let's go ahead and read for today's class. I'm going to pick somebody randomly, that guy in the back. You know, it was random. I don't know how that happened. You want to come up here? Thank you. It's very random. He doesn't know the classroom's culture. Please step forward and then I'll tell you what it is for. I'm sorry, what was your name?
David.
David, okay. Our brother David's.
Hold on,
How are you? Put this in new shoes.
What part? Part what?
Please. We're on video. We're on camera.
Fresh your face.
Have you read the Bible? Sometimes. Have you read today's? Who read this week's reading? Very good, except we with the wrong part, but it's fine.
Is it hot?
Yeah, with the air. Okay, we're live. We're live. People in China are looking at us.
What's today's lesson?
Please. So we're gonna read from Matthew chapter 11. Where did we stop last time? Oh, okay.
Matthew chapter 10, something?
No, chapter 11.
Chapter 11.
11:10.
First
Yeah,
chapter. The first 10
Okay.
verses.
So it's right here. It's 11. Okay, what was it about though?
Jesus was talking about like how good about John, right?
He was talking about John, and then specifically, you guys remember? There was a verse that we looked at that was alluding to the Old Testament. So we looked at how, number one, Matthew, if you guys remember, he's an author that's kind of directing his audience. The main audience are the Jews, and the Jews are very much aware of the Old Testament and all the prophecies that are written in the Old Testament. So he kind of points his finger at this prophecy that's talking about John, and we were talking about how Matthew's main theme is for the Jews who are very much aware of the prophecy. That's where we left off at. So now, like Beatty said, he was talking about how good Jesus is, and we'll talk about that. Just go ahead and read the verse. This. From 11 to here. At the front.
11 to what?
To the 19, like where it says judgment. No, don't be afraid. Okay.
We're live. All right. Matthew chapter
11.
11, verse 11.
Yeah.
I tell you the truth. Of all who have ever lived, none is greater than John the Baptist. Yet even the least person in the kingdom of heaven is greater than he is. And from the time John the Baptist began preaching until now, the kingdom of heaven has been forcefully advancing, and violent people are attacking it. For before John came, all prophets and the law of Moses looked forward to this present time. And if you are willing to accept what I say, he is Elijah, the one the prophet said would come. Anyone with ears to hear should listen and understand. To what I can compare this generation. It is like children playing a game in the public square. They complain to their friends, who played wedding songs and you didn't dance, so we played funeral songs and you didn't mourn. For John didn't spend the time eating and drinking, and you say he possessed by a demon. The Son of Man, on the other hand, feasts and drinks, and you say he's a glutton and drunk, and a friend of tax collectors, other sinners. but wisdom is shown to be right by the results.
Thank you. So remember, this is what we were kind of talking about last week, right? If you guys remember, again, just to revise, here comes the disciples of John. They go to Jesus and they're like, hey, Christ, like, what was the question they asked him? I'm working out, actually. So they asked him if he's actually the one that they've been waiting on, right? So that's what we talked about last week. Are you really the one that the prophets are talking about? Are you the one who, that everybody was waiting on? What was Christ's response? Huh?
He said a lot of things that they
Give us an example. What was it?
I don't know what the specific ones, but the stuff
Prophecies that were written, yeah. But what were those prophecies?
The blind see.
The blind see, the deaf hear, and all this stuff, right? So here are the disciples. They come and they say, hey, wait a second. Are you the real Messiah that everybody's been waiting for? And what's Christ's response? The blind see, the deaf hear, the lame walk, right? So, well, how would we say, like, what is that about? What did we say about that? Yes, sir.
He said that, like when Jesus said that to the Pharisees, he was citing the book of Isaiah. And
Right.
Like because those people also knew, they walked away.
Because they understood what it meant. So in the book of Isaiah, there's a prophecy written about the Messiah who's going to do these miracles. So he's saying, I've done these miracles, hence I am him, right? That's what he's saying. Why did these disciples come and ask Christ if he's the Messiah or not? Like, is John, because it says John sent them, so was John doubting Christ? What was happening?
Searching for confirmation.
Huh?
Searching for confirmations.
No.
Not searching,
No,
but yeah, go ahead.
He's like,
No, they
actually, yeah.
He wants them to believe.
Very good. So they were the ones who were doubting, right? They were the ones who were doubting. So John is sending them to see for themselves. And then we talked about how we've got to believe for ourselves. We can't just believe because our parents are telling us to believe or anything like that. We got to be the ones to make the initiative in order to go. So now, when they begin to go away, what does Christ begin to do? He says, good things about
John the Baptist.
John the Baptist. Why? Why is he doing this? Why does he wait until they leave in order to say something good? Yes, ma'am.
Because he wants to show that John never doubted him.
One, he wanted to show that John never doubted him. What else? Yes, David?
I was going to say something.
Say something else.
He wants to show that John is
And that he was preaching about him, the coming of Jesus Christ.
He was preaching about him. What else? Why didn't he? Yeah.
He didn't want to praise him too much.
There you go. He didn't want to praise him to himself, right? Like he doesn't want him. He doesn't want John to hear him being praised. Why is this important? There's something called Widase Kantu. You guys know what that means?
No.
You want to explain to them what it means? Widase Kantu.
I know what that's in my I don't know.
Yes, ma'am.
Is it like taking God's glory for your?
Yes, that's exactly what it is. So Widase Kantu means like, but Widase means to praise somebody, right? Kantu means just out of nowhere. So you're very good, man. You're amazing. You're great. You're all this. And notice what he's doing. He's like, yes, I am, right? So the minute you're doing that, you're taking the glory away from God, and the power is taken away from you, right? So we should be very careful of how we address people. You know, if you don't mind me picking on you, I was just asking him, are you a good soccer player? He's like, I don't want to judge myself. But here's the thing, right? That's humility, and that's very good. It's the difference between saying, I am great, I'm absolutely the best, and I'm whatever, and then that balanced act of humility, understanding like, hey, I'm not the best, but also understanding that you're not the worst either, right? So as Christians, we ask to remind ourselves that all the glory that we have, regardless of where it is a gift that is given. Even in sports, that's a given. That's a talent that's given to some and not others. But because it's not supposed to be a sermon, but for example, you guys remember the runner?
Oh, yes.
Not me, not.
There's so many runners.
They told me.
Which one?
You know which one I'm talking about. The Nani Tacha. Masarat, right? She is the Masarat of our faith. Because she ran and what she do? When she won.
She pulls up, yeah.
So what it's showing is her talents that she's received from God, she's using it in a positive way in order to spread the gospel. And I think that's important. That's what I'm trying to show you here is whatever glory that we think we have on our own, it is the gift that God has given us in order to glorify Him. So we got to be able to use it the right way. So let's go into today's lesson, and we'll do that. Now, there's a typo here. It's supposed to read part 2, not part 1. I apologize. The person who printed these notes made this mistake.
It's not you, bro.
Not the person.
I didn't print it.
Not the person that typed it.
Please. The printer messed it up. She never will wrong there. So this week, so the first thing that Christ is talking about is He's saying, and I tell you the truth, of all who ever lived, none is greater than John the Baptist. He says, yet even the least person in the kingdom of heaven is greater than he is. So here again, when he's saying even the least in the kingdom of heaven is greater than he is, and I'm sorry I didn't include this part in your notes. He's talking about all of number one, him, right? John is great. You know why John is great? Because he's the last prophet, the first disciple. You guys know this, right? He's the last prophet because he was the last one. You know, a prophet is someone who talks about the future.
Yeah.
Like, so if you guys read it in the Gospel of John chapter 1, hello, come in, please. Grab notes. There's some notes. That's fine. So a prophet is somebody who talks about the future, right? So in John chapter 1, he's like, there's someone greater than I who's coming, and he will do this. What is he doing? He's telling a prophecy about Christ. So he's the last prophet, right? And then he says, this is the one that I've told you about. This is the one that I've been talking about. Follow him. And he's talking about Christ because he's witnessing the miracles that he's doing. What is that called? Discipleship. He's following him. Do you see what I'm saying? So he's the first disciple, the last prophet. Hence, we just had New Year's, right? What's every, depending on whoever you talk to, at the end of the month or the first of the month, that day is dedicated to John the Baptist because of this reason. It's like the change of the old and the new. You see? It's where the old ends and the new begins. Each day there's a holiday associated. You guys know this? What's 24?
Oh,
That's 7. What's 21?
my.
Okay, and then there's the others. There's 30. There's 30. You can at least try to remember the big ones. 12 is?
You can.
17?
That's.
16 is
What's the numbers?
Georgis? I think we got to learn. 23, yeah. What's 29?
The day after
Exactly, that was 29, yeah.
Yep.
28 is? You know these things, son. So anyway, learn these things. It's beneficial. So you don't walk into the church, you're like, what? I used to be so confused. It's not the American calendar. Been church so many times, So there's how many days within a month? I know I'm going off the topic. And the Ethiopian calendar is 30 days, and every single one of them is dedicated to something, right? So 3 is, and stuff like that. So you guys, get to know these things, and if you don't, it's not the end of the world, but it's good to, so the lingo of the Ethiopian Orthodox Father Church, it's good to know. It doesn't hurt. But no 24, that's the biggest one of them all. So he's saying even the least is greater than him. You know why he's saying this? Number one, is because of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Guess who became man? The Son. We know this, right? So he was the least in the sense that he was the only one who took himself down. And from the three persons, God the Son was the only one who took on flesh. So he's saying least in the sense that it was only God the Son who became man. So he's talking about himself. He is greater than John. John is great, but I'm greater than him. That's what he's saying. Do you guys see that? John is great. He's the best prophet, and that's why everybody respects him. That's why nobody questions him. But I'm telling you, from everybody in heaven, including God the Son, who became man, who lowered himself, he's not greater than me. He's not greater than God. He's not greater than, the divine being or the Godhead, the triune Godhead. Right? So let's keep going.
I have a question, sorry.
Yes, ma'am.
How would that have been clear to the people he was speaking to if Jesus was standing in front of them?
So most of them, when you keep reading the gospel, it shows you that some of the things that he said, they didn't understand, right? So there were certain things that was revealed to them later on. So that's why it's a commentary. All right, and then it says, and from the time John the Baptist has been forcefully advancing, and violent people are attacking. Now here I included different versions for you guys in the Bible. We can have a lot of conversations about the different versions of the Bible and why there are different versions of the Bible, right? Remember, one of the things that we talked about is, so most of the New Testament is written in Greek, if not all. And when they were using the Greek and they're translating it, first of all, most of the Greek was translated to Latin, from Latin to English. The English one, that's kind of how it came about, right? The Greek was sent to Ethiopia because it was translated to Syriac, I believe, and then it was translated to goods, right? But the English one, it was from Greek to Latin, Latin to English, yeah.
So at first it wasn't written in Hebrew?
The Old Testament, most of it was written in Hebrew and Aramaic. I mean, we can have a class just on this, but from Hebrew and Aramaic, they decided to translate it to Greek because that's what most people were talking about.
So the New Testament was originally written
Before even the New Testament, the Old Testament, before Christ came, they said a lot of people are speaking Greek, just like a lot of people speak English nowadays.
Yeah.
So they said, we need to give them a Bible that people understand. And there were two different type of Jews. This is very, very important, by the way. The Jews were kind of following exactly what was going on in the Bible. So this is kind of the southern region of the line of Judah and Benjamin. And then there were the Jews who were kind of everywhere, and they had intermarried with other people around them. So they had adopted other cultures. So they couldn't really speak the same Hebrew that their brothers were speaking. So there was a need for them to translate the Bible. They translated the Greek. And then when the New Testament came, you have one which maintained the Hebrew. And then you have another one which was translated the Greek, and then the New Testament was added into that Greek. But most of the translations was from the Greek into Latin and then to English. This is very, very important to understand. And I don't want to get into it, but that makes a lot of difference for why certain things if they're translated differently. If your basis is Greek versus the Hebrew, once you translate something, that is already like a translation. Translating a translated version of a translation, you guys get the idea. So what was I saying? So yeah, so even when they're this is important stuff, there's something called thought for thought. Are you guys with me? Thought for thought is, and then we talked about this before, right? Okay, so thought for thought is they're not translating the words per se, they're translating the thought of the idea of what they're saying. And the example we gave was what's up? You'd say, good morning or hello or something like that, right? So that's thought for thought. They're not concerned about the words that they're saying, they're concerned about the thought. But then that's how you lose mystery, right? That's how you lose mystery. Because sometimes the words that they're saying, for example, the example that we gave with Jesus, when they asked him, are you the Messiah? He said, the blind see. So the thought here is, yes I am, right? That's the thought. So we can translate that section to say, yes, I am the Messiah based on what the prophet said, or something to that effect. But we're missing the mystery that's within it. Or, for example, take when Christ is talking to his mother at the Galilee, right? So, or Cana de Galilea. So, she told him, turn, they have no wine, she said. She said, they have no wine. She didn't say the wine finished. There's a huge difference. Finished means they had it before, and it was done. That's the idea. But the word is, they have no wine, and this is, of course, talking about the blood of Christ. And, there's a lot of mystery in that they have no wine. They don't have your blood yet. So they're not forgetting. I mean, there's, a lot of deep stuff in that. So that's why we have to be careful how we translate words. And that's why it is very, very, you got to be serious about which version we use. In this particular case, because we are concerned about the words and not the idea, the one that is best fitting for what is being translated is in the New King James Version. And notice the difference. New King James Version says, and from the days of John the Baptist until now, the kingdom of heaven suffers violence. This is the word, right? So listen to what it's saying. Get the idea here. From the days of John the Baptist until now, the kingdom of heaven suffers violence. Now, when you're looking at this word, of course you got to ask, what does it mean? Like, the kingdom of heaven doesn't suffer violence. So clearly there must be something else that they're trying to portray. So then how did the others translate it? They said, the kingdom of heaven has been forcefully advancing. You see? Now, the verse is kind of articulated. Restated. It's restated to make it seem like the kingdom of heaven is advancing. Isn't there a difference between the ideas here? You guys see it? The first one, it's being attacked. The second one, in spite of the attack, is still advancing. You see? But in an attempt to get the concept across, they're losing mystery. And this is why we have to be careful. And this is why I say, when people ask me, why, which version should I get? My question is, why are you reading the Bible? Right? If you're just doing a regular prayer, you want to pick up the version that you understand. I have I don't know how many versions I have, right? There's an NLT I use, and KJV.
What does NLT stand for?
New Living Translation. New King James Version. I have the Orthodox Study Bible. I have the Catholic version. Of course, there's the Utopian, and then there's so I have multiple Bibles that I use depending on the situation. Depending on the situation, I'll pick up and look at it and stuff like that. Yeah.
So how are you confident in building the context between the different Bibles? How do you know which one's accurate for which?
I use the goodness. I said English language is weak to begin with. I don't trust the language. There's a lot of things, and even Amharic is very, very, very weak. Let me give you guys another example of this. And I know I'm kind of going off topic. When Adam first saw Eve. First of all, let's back up. When Adam was created, what did God tell him to do in the kingdom of heaven? What's his first job?
Name the creation.
Name the creations, right? This is crucial. He was told to name the creations. You know why? It was a sign of authority within their culture. To name object meant you had authority. This is important. Now hold this thought. When he saw Eve, what did he say to her?
When Adam saw you?
What did Adam say to Eve when he first saw her? Hey, what's up? You want to grab coffee? What did he say to her?
You are flesh, not flesh, bone, not bone, therefore you be called Satan.
You would be called?
Satan.
Satan. Notice this, right? This is the weakness of language. In the Ge'ez, it says, Bi'isi, meaning man, called her Bi'asit. Okay, you understand? And the English actually does a good job of this. The man called her woman. When they called her Satan, you won't see it you don't see it. He's not calling her just like he called other animals. And this is very, very, very crucial to understand. He's saying he is busy, and then he sees himself in her. So he's recognizing God's work. He's not naming her. Right? And you get to see with the word, busy, it makes sense. Man, woman, it makes sense, right? When you talk about one to six, you can't really make that distinction of how, like, what is going on there, and you can't get the clarity of this. Why is this important? Well, today the biggest argument is when God created woman, was she supposed to be an object for the man? In the sense, like, if he named her, this is a sign of authority, meaning you're below me, in the sense of authority, right? But if he's recognized, what he didn't call her Eve, you know, like, what he called her was the Isis. So he's saying, you are, like, I am inside of you, is really what he's saying. So this is not a sign of authority, of, like, objection to say you like, I own you. And this is what I'm saying, like, language really, really matters. And in this case, we see how weak Amarinya is. So all those, you know, dear haters, you know what I mean, like, who think Amarinya is the language of the Bible. It's not. You know, the strong language is Ge'ez. Ge'ez is stronger than Amharic. Greek is stronger than Amharic. Hebrew is stronger than Amharic. So if we're serious about the Bible, even Amharic is not a good language to study in it. But English is very bad. I mean, it's horrible. It's horrible. Just one last comment. Most of the Bibles that have been translated in Ethiopia were translated from English. Hence the rise of Protestants, right? So it's almost a comedy when you know, the Protestants have, like, conversations about the Amharic Bible, and they say, well, actually, if you read the English version, and then they cite the English version as a sign of authority. I mean, that's just that's really bad, because the English is not a sign of authority. It's not something you would claim as a sign of authority. Let's keep going. I'm sorry, I'm going off topic. But I want you guys to understand these things and how important, like, everything is. So again, the NLT version has altered the meaning to make it fit a more gospel-like meaning. So here it's talking about the kingdom of heaven being forcefully advancing, right? So this fits well with the general concept of the kingdom of heaven that we have, as opposed to saying the kingdom of heaven is being attacked. That's a serious claim. So what does Christ mean by the kingdom of heaven is being attacked? Well, it wasn't meant to be bad. It was actually meant to be good. And he's referring to people like Paul, who under the name of, before he became Paul, he was known as Saul. So under the name of Saul, he was going around attacking the kingdom of heaven, right? So he was attacking Christianity. He was attacking what God stood for, right? So this is what he meant. Like, and there were many people even before John the Baptist who were denying who God was. But now something is happening. And so you're filling the blank. When the Bible says the kingdom of heaven suffers, it is referring to the suffering by the many people who are attacking the church and the message of Christ. So there were many people who did not believe in the kingdom of heaven. The suffering by the many people who are attacking the church and the message of Christ. Right? So these are the violent, right, who are against the church. But saying they are forcefully taking the kingdom of heaven by attacking it is saying those people who we thought had no place for the kingdom of heaven are being transformed by the kingdom of heaven and actually are becoming champions for the church. It's talking about people like the Gentiles, right, who are enemies of God before. But now, through this gospel, they're being transformed and they're becoming ambassadors for Christ, ambassadors for Christianity, right? So they're forcefully taking it. We can no longer tell them, this is not for you, because that's what it was in the Old Testament, right? For the Old Testament, it was for the Israelites. Like Judaism, most of it was, we're the special ones, like the nation of Israel is the special one, and everybody else is not special. Like, this was very well known. God had chosen the Israelites. That's what it was. God had chosen the Israelites. That's why everybody was afraid of them, because God had specifically chosen the Israelites. Now, in the New Testament, you can't tell the Gentiles Christianity is not for them. In fact, they're taking it over by force. And they're saying, this is for us. We took it. We weren't considered Gentiles, but we took it. Like, the rest of the world took it and said, this is ours, and they're becoming ambassadors for Christ. So when it's saying the violent are taking it, it's talking about what they were before versus what they are now. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? Yes, sir.
So when it says the kingdom of heaven suffers violence, it's actually a positive.
So when it's talking about the suffering, it's talking about the fact that it was suffering during the old time, when they were attacking it. When it's talking about taking it by force, they took it, like the violent people took it by force. It's talking about those people who once made it suffer are now transformed by it and being ambassadors for it. They're supporting the cause, right? Okay, so that's one way. The second is talking about the fact that when we sin, we are actually participating in the crucifixion of Christ. In the sense that the reason why they crucified Christ is because they didn't accept his message, right? And you guys see Passion of the Christ and people cry and all this stuff. But really what we need to cry about is those people beat him, and spit on him, and crucified him, not understanding who he was. Right? We say we understand him, we have learned about it, we know right from wrong, and yet we reject his message every time we sin. He came here so that we're no longer slaves to sin. Like sin controlled this world. He was the master. Sin was the master of the world. He destroyed the power of sin. And every time we are sinning, we are reviving this thing that's already dead. We're attempting to revive it. So we are participating, right? Right? We are participating. Let's get a clap real quick. Let's get a clap going. Oh no. Okay. So we're participating in the crucifixion of Christ. This is very important to understand. Sinning, when we sin, we're not just hurting ourselves. We're rejecting Christ all over again. We're attempting to put him on that cross all over again, except this time there's no atonement of sin. And that is the true tragedy. That is the attack on the kingdom of heaven. But if we can find that we have done something wrong, and we can find a repentance heart, we can still come back to Christ and repent for our sins. And we will then be taking that kingdom by force again. Because when we sin, we're being kicked out of the kingdom of heaven. And when we come back, what's happening? We're being readmitted to the kingdom of heaven. Everybody looks tired today. You guys want to stop here?
No.
It's just because it's hot.
Really?
It's like really hot.
It is hot. Oh, which reminds me. If you guys are missing any of your notes, or like if you guys want, whatever notes or anything like that, please just contact me, and I'll send you whatever notes that you guys may be missing. All you gotta say is say please. That's the only. That's neither here or there. But if you guys are missing any notes at all, feel free to contact me.
But he won't give it to you.
I'll give it to you. I will. All you gotta say please. All you gotta say please. Please. All right. So moving on with the class. Then Christ says something. John is Elijah. Look, when you read the Bible, stop and be like, what is the meaning of this, right? Like, Sidium is David. It makes no sense, right? David is like, I don't know, right? So we laugh at this, but when we read this verse, we should have stopped and been like, yo, what is this about? Like, John is Elijah. Like, does that make sense? No, he's not. John is John. So what does he mean by this? Look, when you're reading the Bible, stop and really try to understand what's going on. We have a tendency to just read through stuff. You ever notice that? Like you finish a chapter, you don't see it. And that's kind of the point of this class, is to really make us see more than anything else. More than everything that we're talking about, to help us understand that we can't really understand the Bible on our own. You see? This is why commentaries are needed. Alright, let's look at it. So what does he mean? He is Elijah. Christ is referring to a prophecy written in Malachi. It says, look, I'm sending you the prophet Elijah before the great and dreadful day of the Lord arrives. So here there's a prophecy in Malachi about Elijah coming before Christ. In this case, it's talking about his prophecy of like the prophecies that Elijah, or not the prophecies, but the fact that Elijah is going to come before the end of the world. You guys know that, right? Before the second coming?
Yeah, I think there was like some offshoot in Ethiopia called like Elijah 1, and then they believe like Elijah's coming.
Yeah, they're cuckoos.
But didn't they say he already came or something?
Yeah. Yeah.
Is it true?
They're like an offshoot.
Elijah's not here.
But no, like in the like Orthodox study Bible, like the notes part, they're saying that he had already came or something like in the
Who said that?
I don't know,
Orthodox study Bible?
Yeah.
You know that's not ours.
Oh, yeah. Oh no, I think what you're talking about is the Antichrist, because I heard that the Greeks. No, because I heard that the Greeks, they believe that the Antichrist is already come.
He's already here?
They already came.
They don't believe that.
Are we on Facebook Live?
Yes.
Please cut it out.
I didn't say that.
You can't cut it out, it's not.
No, but I don't think they heard what we talked about. So
My face is on.
Elijah is not here. Like, you know what I mean? Like, people would have snapped it. I'm pretty sure. She's about to check on Snapchat. So Elijah's not here, okay? But there's a prophecy about him coming before the end of the world. You guys know that, right?
Yeah.
Him and who else?
Jesus. I mean, like, Elijah's supposed to come before Jesus. I think that's what I understood.
Jesus is coming again. Yes, this is right. But who is Elijah coming with?
Is it Hannah?
Yes, Enoch, right? And all of them that didn't die, they're gonna fight, but like at the Antichrist, and you know they're going to die, you know, in order to they have to die. And so there's this teaching of the Ethiopian Orthodox Church based on this prophecy. So Elijah is coming before the second coming of Christ. Right?
Is it like close before or like way before?
I don't know the year, but it's before. But yeah.
Sorry, because I knew about this prophecy, but I thought that Elijah had to come before the Messiah, like not in the second coming, just before he came, because there was something saying Elijah needs to anoint the Messiah, and isn't that why the Jews rejected Jesus Christ?
So Elijah, the official teaching is he's coming before the second coming. So what's going to happen is when the Antichrist is going to be like a war and heavy things, and then they're going to be martyrs, and they're going to die like defending the faith. That's the teaching of the church. So I got to read further about exactly what's said about that. So he's coming before the second coming. Now the connection that's being made here is Elijah coming before the second coming of Christ. He still came before Christ arrived. It's like how John came before Christ came the first time. You see? Elijah here before Christ arrives. John is here before Christ arrived. You guys see it? But that's not the only connection that's being made here. The second connection that's being made here is he's saying John is like Elijah in the sense of his appearance. For example, look at the way that John is described in his appearance. Now, John himself is clothed in camel's hair, with a leather belt around his waist, and his food was locusts and wild honey. He was a hermit. John was a hermit. You guys know that, right? The same way that Elijah was like a hermit. It says, where am I at? A hairy man wearing a leather belt around his waist. Again, 2 Kings chapter 1, verse 8. This time it's talking about Elijah. This time it's talking about Elijah. Let's keep going. He symbolizes him also by deeds, right? By deeds, they're very similar. Let's look at how they're similar. What is John known for, other than preaching and stuff like that? What did he do related with Herods? We talked about it last week. Think Herods, Herodiada.
He condemned Herods for being with the wife of his brother.
Right. He challenged him. That's a no-no. That is a no-no. You don't. So he went and was like, "Hey, man. Hey, brother." He said to him, he said, "Hey, brother, you took your brother's wife." You see what I did there? I did that one. I did that. So you're like, you took your brother's wife. How can you? Right? He challenged the king. He stood up for what was right. You know, that's the thing. When we're reading stuff like this, it's really important to understand and kind of practice it, right? Whenever we're kind of challenged in a way and we see those people in higher authority doing something wrong, we have to stand up for what is right. Especially those of us who are in leadership, right? Part of obeying means challenging what is wrong. We're obeying our parents when we're telling them, "No, I can't do that." We're obeying them. You know that? Because obeying means making sure even they are going in the direction of what God wants them to do. If our parents say, "Do not go to church," we have to say, "No, I am going to church." You see? So so we've got to learn that some of the stuff that they're doing is just like we got to learn from them. So just like John challenged an authority when something wasn't right, man, there's something in the blood. Like, what water are you guys drinking at home?
I'm fine.
Not you want to switch.
Doesn't work.
Like, the AC only works next to me. Really? He's doing okay.
You shouldn't see.
I think so. Is that sick? I don't know if you look worried for him or for yourself.
No, I mean, are you okay?
That's amazing.
If you pass out, just let us know right before.
The second blank space.
Indeed, that's pay attention.
How is he telling you what's
Wait, so John is like Elijah in his appearance? Is that the blank?
Indeed, by deeds, through deeds, because of deeds. You probably saw it right here.
So that's right.
Just in case I sleep.
Exactly.
Alright, guys. Alright. And then also, what did Elijah do? What's Elijah known for? Well, yeah, but what did he do? How did he challenge the king? Who was the king?
I don't know the king's name, but that was drought, I believe, because he said there would be a drought. The king didn't like him. He sent some people with force, actually soldiers to kill him, but he did challenge him, and there was a battle between them.
Basically, they were creating foreign gods, like a statue system called Baal.
Taots.
Taots, yeah. Not top, but top. Taots. So like it says, and then the king and the queen, Jezebel, yes, everyone knows Jezebel. Me, fun. And then, because they were doing this, Elijah went, he's the man in the Old Testament. He goes in, "You guys can't do this. This is huge. This is real big." For him to go into the palace and really challenge, this is pretty big stuff, So when you read the Bible, try to understand the culture that existed at the time. this is, people get, evacuated there, like, So he risked all that stuff, just like John did. Well, John, he did get that. So he actually got that. So they're similar in deeds. Both of them are they stand up for what they believe in, right? They exemplify what it means to be a true, devout follower of Christ. So he does that. And then he compares the generation. Let's read that section again, just in case we forgot it. It says, "For John spent his time eating and drinking, and you say he's possessed by a demon. The Son of Man, on the other hand, feasts and drinks, and you say he's a glutton and a drunken, and a friend of tax collectors and sinners, but wisdom is shown to be right." Before that, he says, "To what can I compare this generation? It is like children playing a game in public square. They complain to their friends, we played wedding songs." He didn't dance, so we played funeral songs. You know more. So he said, to what do I compare this generation? Why is this generation very important? Not this one. Yeah.
Is it because that was the generation where the Jews were considered like falling off track?
Well, this is the generation that everybody's been waiting for. Remember, there's a countdown, right? Yeah, everybody was going 5,500 BC before Christ, right? 5,549, 5,548. Skip a few. 3, 2, 1, and then
Let's go.
there's no 0. There's no blast off because there was no rocket ships and stuff. But they went from 1 to 1. You guys know that there's no 0. You guys know this, right? Yeah, there's no 0. Didn't exist.
Really?
You know who came up with it? The Arabs. They were trying to bargain. They were like, "What's the only thing below 1?" Trying to buy stuff. No, I saw that in the comments. Yeah. But actually, believe it or not, even 1 wasn't like a real number way back in the day. I'm getting too much. But anyway, so the main thing is, they had all these ideas about whatnot. But so this is the generation that mattered because there was a prophecy, and they were counting down to this. They're told that the Messiah is coming, right? And they should know this stuff, but yet they're not believing it. And then, not only are they not believing it, they make excuses for it. Like, he's doing the miracles. He's doing everything the prophecy says will happen. He's performing them. It's happening. Certain things you can say he dictated, but he can't dictate like where he's born. You know what I mean? That was a prophecy that came real. He can't dictate things that happen to him. You know what I mean? These are things that he can't dictate, but the prophecies were occurring, and yet they couldn't believe. So he's like, to what do I compare this generation to? This is very important to understand. And then he says, and then he talks about like the wedding music, right? Well, it says, what does it say? We played wedding songs, and you didn't dance. We played funeral songs, you didn't want. So like, imagine a group of people like who call a band, and they say, play something, right? So they're like, we'll play something like, and then like, so everybody's like, it's like maybe they're sad, and like so, and then like they're not like mourning, so like nothing happens. It's like, what do you want? I pick something. Like either are you gonna be happy or not? So what does this mean? What does this symbolize? Well, what it symbolizes is the fact that you gotta get up and pay attention in class. The second thing that it symbolizes is the fact that when the dancers, or the wedding song, in this case is symbolizing the disciples, right? This is symbolizing the disciples. So the fact that they talked about Christ, right? They talked about Christ. And the fact that Christ is like Lord. And then it's symbolized with the wedding song because through Christ there's forgiveness. And that's the real joy that we find out of it. In the Old Testament, it's symbolized by mourning. Mourning, because there was no forgiveness back in the day. You guys want to stop here? You sure? You sure? I feel like I'm just talking about myself. So that's what the song relation is talking about. Let's not the rest part out, because there's no point in talking about it. So the next part is so we finished that section, right? And we're not even gonna. Well, I'll read it real quick. So the next section, Matthew, is just 4 verses, and we're gonna do it real quick, okay? Hopefully everybody pay attention, and then we can just move on along. Then it says, so he's talking about to what can I compare this generation to? And then he says the example of the singing in the morning, and then he says, then Jesus began to denounce the major words that I want you guys to kind of focus on. The towns where he had done so many miracles because they hadn't repented of their sins and turned to God. What sorrow awaits Chorazin and Bethsaida? There's a high probability I said that city wrong. His name is probably not good. For if the miracles I have done in the wicked, For if the miracles I did in you had been done in wicked Tyre and Sidon, their people would have repented of their sins long ago, clothing themselves in burlap and throwing ashes on their heads to show their remorse. I tell you, Tyre and Sidon will be better off on Judgment Day than you. And you people of Capernaum, will you be honored in heaven? No, you will go down to the place of the dead. For if the miracles I did for you had been done in wicked Sodom, it would still be here today. I tell you, even Sodom will be better off on judgment than you. Here are the cities that I want you guys to remember. Chorazin, I think, Chorazin. Bethsaida, and Capernaum. Capernaum special. Like, wherever you guys go, Capernaum. Right? Like, that's where all the miracles occurred. Bethsaida, this is where he healed like a blind man, right? So this is the place where Christ would come and do a lot of miracles. So why do you think he keeps coming back to this place? This is where, no, they didn't accept him. That's what he's saying. This is the cities of the Jews. The Jews were the ones who were saying, when is the Messiah going to come? When is the Messiah going to come? Christ is like, I'm here. Like, I'm going to prove it to you. Here's a miracle. Man, here's a miracle. Fixed. Here's a miracle. This. And none of them believe. None of them believe. Tyre and Sidon and all of them, they were Gentiles. They were Gentiles. He's saying, if I had spent my time doing these miracles here with the people who claim to believe, if I had done it with the Gentiles, they would have believed in me. Sodom is known for what? Not just the gay stuff, but the fact that it was destroyed, and it was destroyed in a horrible way. It was destroyed really bad. He's saying that's nothing compared to what you guys are about to have. Why? Because you guys are supposed to believe I've done everything that I'm supposed to, and yet you guys don't believe. Here's where it hits home, like for us, for Ethiopians, right? We are champions. We are Ethiopians. We are the country of religion, we say, right? Our ancestors believed in God, You have the 10 Commandments, and the right hand of where Christ rested at the cross is in Ethiopia. And, miracles happen all the time and stuff like that. Okay, that's great what happened to us? Right? And it's still, with all this stuff happening, the country is known for corruption, right? Ethiopians, as a culture, we lie. It's like a cultural thing to lie. It is like, what's your culture like? We eat injera, we wear white, we lie. It's the thing we do. Culture that lies Christians. It's a shame. It's horrible. Talking about all that stuff doesn't mean anything if we can't live the Word of God. DC, all DC. I've been traveling, I told you guys this. When I go to other places, how people take the gospel, the Word of God, they're very serious. You go anyway, you've been to a few places, you've seen around. Like how people listen to the Word of God when they told Guayadle. There's like some people cancel everything. Like, no, today, we gotta hear the Word of God. People sit, they cry. Little kids I'm talking about. Little kids. 14, 15, oh my gosh, we heard the Word of God. DC, you better let me come to you and teach you. No, man. I got stuff to do. Let's do it. Like, come on, let's learn. Like, there's all these opportunities. Come and learn. Like, please. No, I don't have time. I got stuff to do. If the other places got this opportunity, man, oh man. Sometimes when the things are offered in a simple way, that like people are just like learning whenever they want, people don't take it seriously. The thought of people learning in English, and I told you guys this from like the beginning. I told you, now you're just beginning to understand. That's why you guys started teaching. Now, this is not common to learn the gospel in this way. This is not common. You know, don't take advantage of it. Really take it seriously. It's not just about the learning aspect. We've got to take what we learn and transform it into our lives. There's got to be something that we show, right? Okay, you came today an hour, you were burning in the room, right? Like it's hot, it's burning hot. You came here from far away. Some people from like out of the state, you know. Essentially, it is, right? So, like, you know, people drove like a long way to be here, right? What are you gonna take back with you on your drive back? You know. So, like, you came, and then what? So this week, what is this class supposed to do in our personal lives? Let me say this and I'll wrap up. You know, when you follow Christianity, how it developed over time since the end of, you know, since the time that Christ died until now, especially in the early part of Christianity, Bible study wasn't a study for intellect. It was a study for life. It was a way for them to really understand how they can transform their life. And actually, some of the fathers in early times, when they would begin to like write a commentary on the Bible, they would start writing it, and mid-through, they would stop. You know what? There's like that work transformed their life. They're like, this doesn't matter anymore. I just need to pray the rest of my life. Like what they're writing, what they're saying, what they're teaching transforms them so much that they're like, here's like that's it. Like I'm gonna practice everything that I say. So you know, like part of the teaching, like pray, fast, and whatever. They're like, okay, I will. And then they start to do it, and then the rest of the stuff they kind of leave it behind. It was a way for them to transform their life. For us, if it's just intellectual exercise, then we miss the point. We miss the point. And we really got to start like understanding, like we're here really to transform our life. And let's just take it seriously, you know. We already like paying the sacrifice. We're here. Like, it's hot. I get it. And we're here. But we heard something. We heard at least like 2 or 3 things, right? Let's take those 3 things and really use it to transform our lives. So I know that.
Well, I didn't get the other thing.
What happened?
I was sick.
A lot of times, you know, they